Okay, we flipped a coin to see who would be the first speaker. And Brian Matlock is a Democratic candidate for the Arizona Mine Inspector. He won the toss. He's a mechanical engineer with experience in technical marketing of hard rock mining wear parts. You'll have to tell us what that is. He's worked with mines across Arizona and throughout the United States. So, Brian, come on up.
I want to thank you for having us today. My name is Brian Matlock, and I'm running for Arizona State Mine Inspector. And I'm here today with my wife, Lori, and she's back there. So, if I got $1 every time somebody asked me, why is this an elected position, my campaign would be fully funded. But the reality is, no, I don't get $1 every time. We're running a traditional campaign, very, very austere. So, anyways, the elected position actually has been around since 1912 when G.H. Bolin was first elected as a Democrat, as the state mine inspector. So what does the state mine inspector do? I know a lot of people have that question. So one part of the job is to oversee Arizona's 400 active mines. And here, I know you guys know about the mines, but we have 4 large mines within 20 miles of where we're at right now, if we count Copper World over here. Plus you also have the underground mine down near Nogales. So what the statutes require is that every open pit mine, they need to be inspected twice a year. So that's twice for Mission North, twice for Mission South, twice for Sarita, and then when Copper World comes online, it's going to be twice there. So that's 8 times we're going to be down here and doing inspections, as well as 4 times going down to the Hermosa mine in Nogales, and that's just in this small area. So what do we actually inspect? The statutes are pretty clear. They give us some guidance and say you need to, make sure that you're, for example, that you don't smoke around explosives and things like that. But the one that I'm going to pay attention to is what they call operator responsibility. And this is such an important statute, I'm going to read it to you in its entirety. And I don't want to mess this up, so I'm actually going to read it. The operator shall conduct his operation with due regard to health and safety. There you go. That's it. But the real big words there is due regard. Because what due regard means in this context, this means to give fair consideration and to give sufficient attention to all facts. That means we have to look at every little aspect of that mine and actually consider whether that's important for health and safety and then do something about it. So our simple little statute just got a whole lot more complex. Earlier this year, Pit and Quarry had reported that MSHA, that's the Federal Mine Safety Health Administration, they were already struggling to do what they call their 2s and 4s. It's the same inspections we do. It's the 2 at the open pit, 4 at the undergrounds. And they didn't, due to staffing issues, they weren't able to keep up with those. Then when DOJ comes through and they had all the layoffs and the hiring freeze, it's highly unlikely that everything's going to get worse. And that's where having a state mine inspector becomes more important, because this office will then be the backstop when the federal oversight falters. So a little bit about the electoral history. You may not be aware of this. Does anybody know the last time we had a Democrat in this role?
30 years ago.
You're not close. It's actually 1976. Since the bicentennial was the last time we had a Democrat in this role. Get this. In my lifetime, 9 times the Democrats just handed that role to the Republicans. We didn't put up any challengers. 9 times. It's crazy, isn't it? The last 2 mine inspectors, I had to think about this one for a second. The last 2 mine inspectors were actually appointed. When Inspector Hart had resigned because of health issues, Ducey appointed Paul Marsh. Marsh made a good run against a bill, we had a Democrat candidate, and he made a good run, came with a few points of voting, but didn't make it. Next go around, he didn't get his signatures in time, and so he didn't run, and Marsh is in there again. So now Marsh was appointed, won one election, appointed, next one unopposed, and then what does he do? He quits. He quits. And so that's when Governor Hobbs had to appoint the guy that's in there right now, another Republican, and that's just a few weeks ago. So the point I'm trying to get to here is, This is actually our race to lose. I really need the signatures. We can't get a Democrat in there until we get the signatures in place. So I have a signing thing back there so you can sign and put your signature on my petition. I am the only Democrat running for this. And I need 6,556 signatures. So please, please, please help me with that. So when I was growing up, there were two things that were important to me growing up. One, I was going to be a Marine like my dad, and the second one is I was going to be an engineer. As I got closer to the graduation day, I thought I wasn't going to be able to do both. But I had a clever counselor, and I was able to do my Marine service as a reservist while I went to college. So imagine this, I'm taking a calculus exam on Friday morning, and Saturday afternoon, I'm on the firing line with my infantry unit in Nashville. So it was a pretty exciting time. After I graduated college, I went into industry for a couple of years, about 2 decades, and then I got involved with a foundry, and that's where I got into coal mining. I was hired as a product engineering manager doing dragline, that's strip mining, right? And as a foundry, we made chain for all the draglines. So I traveled throughout North America, spent time in South Africa, as well as in Australia, because that's where the big strip mines are. From that experience, I ended up coming down here to Arizona, where I became involved with the hard rock mining. I worked mostly in the United States, Canada, but I did do some work in Mongolia going with the hard rock mines. My experience is mostly field service and design work. However, I did do, like I talked about in the intro, I was a marketer of wear parts. And basically, when you're crushing rock and it's being moved through something, the walls are going to get eaten up. So we made as big chunks of steel and special steel to keep it alive. That's what the wear parts were, and that's how I get into these mines. So when it comes to mining experience and you go to the mines, first thing you have to do is you have to spend 3 days in training through MSHA. Then every year you get a 1-year training, a refresher course. But on top of that, every time you go to a mine site, you have to get site hazards. And they're going to train you on what's specific about their site. So with all the dozens and dozens of sites that I go to, I get trained dozens and dozens of times a year. So that's kind of my background. How am I doing on time?
Fine, you're fine.
So what I want to talk to you about is a concept I want to put forward. So when we talk about the rules, right, or we talk about the statutes, they can be very specific, but the state legislature also wanted the mine inspector to be able to write rules to make them a little bit more specific. It's really hard to prove that something doesn't exist, but I can't find any. So what I'm proposing is we put together a program, what I call best practices, and it can be done at 2 levels. The first level, which is easiest to understand, is at what I call the functional best practices. That's what an electrician, a welder, a pipe fitter would use, right? So if you're an electrician and they're putting in a box, they would have to, the rules would say, follow the National Electric Code. Because without those rules, what happens is the mine inspector and the mine operator, they work together and the mine inspector says, hey, that looks dangerous. And then the mine says, okay, we'll fix that. And it's just an agreement. We don't have a standard out there saying, this is how it needs to be, okay? So by going with best practices, we can then point everybody in the right direction. And the idea is we uplift the industry. So that's easy when we talk about it at the trade level. But let's talk about it at a higher level. That's the operational level. And that's where I would work. We already have good relationships with the university and mine operators. Let's work together and get a standard built for the way they operate these mines. Nobody's going to get to that higher standard right away, so we'd have to have a ratcheted way to get there. And the reason I'm proposing this is here in Arizona, we produce 70% of the nation's copper. That is a very big chunk of copper that's coming out of this state. We have so many other things to offer in this state that if you're mining in Arizona, it's my belief that it's got to be world-class mining. That when they're done, it has to be the best they can possibly be. So the benefit to the mines is that when the mine inspector shows up, there's no guessing, is that going to be safe enough? No, because we're going to measure against a standard. The other side of it is when a mine meets all those best standards, or best practices, we could go to the city council and say, hey, you have a good neighbor here. This mine is doing so well, it's meeting all of the best practices. Can you just recognize them as a good neighbor? We could even do that with our representatives. If you have a mine that's doing everything best practice, let's count them as a good neighbor. But it's a two-way street. The statutes say, hey, you got to come and you got to inspect these mines, like I said, the 2s and 4s. But nowhere in it does it say that we got to come back and talk to you folks and tell you what's going on there. So what I think would be worthwhile is, and this is the way I would run the office, is that you have concerns. Call the mine inspector up. Let's have a town hall like that. Tell me what our mine's doing. What's happening there? Obviously, there's proprietary information the mine inspector would know that he can't share, but we can talk about safety. But the flip side of that is, you can also come to the mine inspector. If you see something, say something. Because I believe when you have this long of a term where it's all run by the same party, you can become complacent. And I'm not saying it's a party thing, but because they're constantly being elected and taking that office, there's no rules in place, that by having somebody else come in, it kind of drops the complacency. So there's a more fun part that I want to talk about just briefly. Another part of the mine inspector's job is abandoned mines. All right. So when we talk about abandoned mines, there's two types I want to talk about. The first one is the uranium mines we have up in the Navajo Nation. There we have to have experts come in and work with us on how we're going to deal with those abandoned mines. That's one thing. But then we have what I call the wildcat mines, the ones that you guys might find when you're in the backcountry. We have like 100,000 of those in Arizona. I happened to be going on YouTube the other day, and there was talking about abandoned mines in Illinois, and they were concerned they have 6,000 abandoned mines. I'm thinking, oh, how quaint. So to make this all work, what I would suggest, see, I'm a mountain biker, and I would partner with people like me, other people that use the backcountry. You come across an abandoned mine, notify the office, let's go out there, let's mark it, let's make it secure, and then name it after your dog or your horse. Let's give you kind of a finding credit. All right, so we get through we get the signatures, and I'm on the ballot. Now what we have to do is it's important to get me actually in the roll. And so at that point, this is a statewide reach, and I'm going to have to literally make millions of contacts over and over again to get enough votes to get this election. Because you have it's not going to be just Democrats. I have to bring Republicans and independents in there to be able to win this. So I'm going to reach out to you again, hopefully sometime middle of next year, because I'm going to need people to help me out with phone banking and canvassing in your area. Now, I did start off with a little bit of joke about, hey, if I was given $1 every time that somebody asked me this question, well, we do run a very austere campaign at this point. We were up in Coconino County for the county fair. We actually brought our little trailer up there, and we camped in one of the supporters' driveways to keep our costs down. But we do spend money. So you can go to my website. It's matlock4azmi.com, and there you can get right to my petition, and you can sign it. And if you've already signed my petition, please tell your friends and neighbors to sign it too. You can also get there at that same point is you can get to my account, and you can donate some money and try and help out the campaign a little bit, and that would be very appreciative. Most of our expenses is just driving. We spend a lot of time on the road. Yavapai County yesterday, here today. We're actually we have 2 trips down here in Tucson over this weekend. With that, is there any questions that I can answer?
Okay, before we start, make sure that you use the mic, because we want to make sure we're recording your question. And then I'll get Brian next.
So I'm kind of lost in the superstitious mountains. Are you guys looking at some of those old gold mine stories?
Yes, out of novelty, and actually where I do my mountain biking is up there in the superstitions. And went by one of the abandoned mines, and there's a big hole in the ground, like about maybe 5-6 feet in diameter. And I was there with my riding buddy, and I just picked up a rock and I tossed it in there. And it took a long time. I was actually becoming a little bit nervous. Fortunately, nobody yelled and threw it back out at me. So yeah, I'm very familiar with the superstitions, and that's where we'll find some of those mines that I'm talking about.
Okay, well, we're passing around your
Okay,
petition right now, but Brian's got a question, then I'll get over to you next.
Brian, 2 questions really. Where in the organization chart do you report up? And number 2, do you expect any interference or pushback from Corporation Commission or ADEQ or other organizations within the Arizona government that might make your job more difficult rather than less?
First question, the governor. Okay, so that's who I would be reporting to. As far as the other organizations, I see this position as much a conduit as it is it's not really a legislative job, right? So I would be working with ADEQ. I've read through, there was a recent report when I was up in Yavapai where they have a quarry, and what they do with the dust and mitigation that they talk about at the quarries. But that's also part of the mining standards that's also in our. So we would be working together. Do I anticipate problems? No, because I think there's an advantage to the mine operators to do things right, because there's always anytime anybody gets hurt, that's a potential for shutting things down. So everybody wants things to move smoothly. So I'm confident from working with the mine. I've never worked with a single mine operator that was like, forget this, we're just going to do it this way. No, it's always been safety first. I don't see that as being an issue.
Thank you.
Here first, back here. Wait for the mic.
What motivated you to run for mine inspector?
That's a great question. The joking answer is that when my mom and dad both lived in Arizona, they both always wrote me in. But obviously and it was, hey son, we voted for you. But really what happened is, it was a little over a year ago, Save Our Schools called me up and I started doing phone banking with them. And that's actually when I first got involved with politics, period. Then I became I'm the first vice chair of the Apache Dems, AJ Dems, Apache Junction Dems. And going through the CEBV training as a PC. And of course, with the last election, what can I do? I didn't see myself being a representative. I didn't see myself being a senator. But I do see myself being able to fulfill this role. And that was my motivation.
Again, question back here, and I'll
Go
go
to
to everybody next.
Why is this even a partisan position?
Got a buck?
That's a good question.
I don't know. That's the odd thing. It's I haven't found a good reason for that. I mean, there's so many other positions that are appointments. I don't know, but it's really it's more of an enforcer than it is any other type of a role.
When you talk about best practices, are you just focused on employee safety, or are you also looking at community safety?
You're exactly right. Both of those. When I come into the office, the first thing that I would be most important about is I thought about that. Okay, sooner or later, after 50 years of being run one way, I'm going to be stepping into an office with a number of other workers that are used to doing things a certain way. So the first thing I would be concerned about is what's happening, what do we know about our communities and how our communities are at risk? Particularly when we talk about here, this is a great place to talk because we can just look out here and we can see these tailings piles, right? How secure are these tailings facilities? I'm not saying there's anything wrong, I'm just using that as an example. So the first thing would be to be looking at those. So yes, community safety is first. Second would be miner safety. And there's no reason we can't do two things at the same time. So as far as priorities, they'd be basically hand in hand. And then as far as the mining operators, they're going to be fine either way. So it might be first the community, then the miners.
If you find something in the structure like that, like the different ponds down here,
Sorry.
who do you report that to? ADEQ? Who comes out and inspects these sludge ponds if they're not up to certain standards?
Well, we would have to look to see what ADEQ might have already in agreements, but as the mine inspector, we could issue citations and fines, and we could also give the direction to make sure that it gets fixed.
Okay. That's clear.
I had the exact same question that she had.
Okay. Judy back here and then up front.
Okay, my main question, I think, just got answered, which is what authority do you have to enforce things? And fines, is that all spelled out in the statute that you can set fines individually, or is there a process or anything? And then the other thing was, you kind of mentioned people in the office. Do you have a big staff working under you?
Second question first. There is a staff, and from what I've seen online, because that's where I get most of my information about the inspector's office, is it looks like there's probably like 15 people in the office. There's a deputy mine inspector, and then there's another smaller division within the office that deals with reclamation. Okay, and the other part of the question?
Oh, what authority do you
Oh.
have?
Yeah, it's the citation. It's the citations, and that would be, and now I can't tell you that I know that process fully, because I've read through the statutes, and it is something that we can do, but it's very hard to show that something's not happening. And I can go and I can look what MSHA has found, say, for example, at the Morenci mine back east, which is one I used to my research on, and they found all kinds of citations, from small, there's a bunch, right? There's no reason to get into that kind of detail. But I can't find the similar citations coming out of the state mine inspector's office. You would expect the two to go hand in hand.
Yeah, I wanted to know, how do you feel, or what do you, personally, how do you feel about the expansions of mines? Like, for example, in the east part of here over in Santa Rita Mountains, that they want to have a big mining operation over there. They have another big one down there in Patagonia, and there's a lot of controversy in the community. What's your personal?
I can't speak specifically to each one of those because I haven't dug into the details, but I am pro-mining. I do support mining, but I also feel that mining needs to be world-class in Arizona. So what I would expect, whether it's at the Hermosa mine or up in my neck of the hoods, the Resolution mine at Oak Flat that they're talking about, the mine inspector doesn't have any part of the permitting of that. But what I would expect, and this is where the mine inspector can have influence, is that the work they do at these mines has to be world-class, because here in Arizona, we deserve it to be the best. And where I would have some influence, and that would be at the beginning of a new mine, is approving the reclamation plans.
You would
All right.
like to see both of these mines developed?
I'm not saying that I like to have, I haven't researched them deep enough to find what the other concerns are.
We could have Brian talk all day on this topic. We'll ask him to stick around if he will and answer further questions, but we've got another candidate we need to hear from too. Let's give Brian a real round of
Thank you
applause.
very much. Thank you again, Brian. Okay, our next speaker is Nick Mansour. He's a Democrat candidate for the Arizona State Treasurer. Okay, I'll let you go further with your introduction of your own.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Sandy, for making this happen. You know, I get to campaign a little bit with Brian. We run into each other. We were up in Coconino together. And one thing that is really cool about being a mine inspector is you get to show up at events like this in your boots and your jeans. One of the first times I told somebody that I was running for treasurer, they looked at me and they said, "You look like a treasurer." And I don't think that's a compliment. But anyways, real quick background on me. I grew up in Tucson. I've been an entrepreneur for the last 27 years. My aunt and uncle are in the back room here. They were like second parents to me, so you can ask them if I'm the real deal later. But they're here. They live here in Green Valley. I'm going to tell you a quick story about what led me to deciding to run for the treasurer's office. When I was 40, I was diagnosed with a tumor. It's the size of a golf ball. It was right in between my ears. Now, my brothers and sisters looked at my head and they thought, you can probably fit a couple of golf balls in there, no problem. But the doctor soon scheduled me for a 10-hour surgery. And, you know, many people have health scares like this. It can have a profound impact. For me, it's honestly one of the best things that ever happened to me. Anne-Marie and I were 40. I guess I was 40. She was not. Yeah, she was 42. We had 4 kids, age 10 and under. And I had a chance to evaluate my life. And at age 40, I decided that I hadn't helped enough people. And I didn't want to get to age 80 and feel the same way. Now luckily, and spoiler alert here, I survived the surgery. And coincidentally, soon thereafter I got involved with a school called Arizona College of Nursing, which I have been the CEO and chairman of for the last 14 years until about this time 1 year ago. And we grew Arizona College of Nursing from 450 students to about 7,000, 7,500 students, not exactly sure, during my tenure. More important than that, we helped thousands of people become nurses. And there may be some nurses in this room, or maybe you know somebody that's a nurse or in healthcare. Nursing can transform people's lives, and through them, we were able to improve Arizona's healthcare and healthcare in 13 other states around the country. It's one of the best things that I've ever done. But I've decided that it's time to serve Arizona in a different way. This office can do a lot more to provide all Arizonans with opportunities to improve their lives. And I want to focus on 3 things as treasurer. Number 1, driving our state's growth. Number 2, increasing our funding for education. And number 3, fiscal responsibility, which is also related to education. One of the best things about Arizona, one of the good things about Arizona is that we are growing. And you have to do it the right way, you have to do it sustainably. But growth means more and better jobs for all Arizonans. I've created businesses, I've created jobs. I can use my background to attract good companies and good jobs to our state, and that's what I intend to do. Over the last 3 months since I announced, I've talked to hundreds, maybe even thousands of Arizonans at this point. Many people are worried about our economy and their future. Things keep getting more and more expensive. Education is a key to a better place in life. I've seen that in my own life. As I said, I saw it at Arizona College of Nursing. Nursing also pays very well. Those students were making 2.5, 3 times more as soon as they got a job after graduating from our school than they did before they joined. Our education is not where probably anybody in this room wants it to be. Yeah. We're ranked 50th. Actually, recently somebody told me that's not exactly true. If you include Guam and Puerto Rico and some of the other territories, we're ranked 53rd. I'm a numbers guy, that's out of 50 states. We're ranked 53rd. Our students perform below average on standardized tests. And we get what we pay for. Depending on the year, our funding is 49th or 50th. So I'm not saying that spending more money is 100% the solution, but it is a part of the solution. And that's where the treasurer can help. So last, fiscal responsibility. As I said, this is also related to education. We are blessed to have an education endowment fund in this state. The treasurer oversees that fund. It is now a $9 billion fund. Only Arizona invests it differently than every other state that has a similar fund. And they earn more money than we do. If we had invested it like New Mexico, or Oregon, or Texas, or Wyoming, or Utah, or half a dozen other states invest their funds, we would have earned $200 million more 1 year alone. Tax-free, nobody would have to pay a dime to get that. Put it another way, if we did what they did 11, 12 years ago, our fund has grown from $5 billion to $9 billion. Today it would be a $12 billion fund. So over the last 10 or 11 years, we've lost out on $3 billion of funding. That's 100% for the benefit of education. So we need to update this office, starting with that endowment fund. Like I said, I'd give you another example. You may be all familiar with empowerment scholarship accounts, ESAs, vouchers. Okay, say what you will about the program. There is waste in that program. Okay, if you homeschool your kids, you get that money. And your money, and my money, is paying for jewelry, it's paying for trips to SeaWorld, it's paying for trampoline park memberships, it's paying for kitchen appliances, and I could name some other things that would be even more shocking than that, but I won't. That's waste. And the treasurer oversees that fund. The treasurer is an administrator of that fund, just like the superintendent of public instruction. And I promise you that as treasurer, I will do whatever is in my power to eliminate that waste. So those are the 3 reasons I'm running. There is a 4th reason, sorry, those are my 3 priorities as treasurer. There is a 4th reason I'm actually running though. And that's to restore some decency to our politics. You are all wearing, well, many of you are wearing paper clips. I've not seen that before. The first person, I saw it on Sandy's ears, I thought, what is this? And then somebody over here had what, it's you? You had the paper clip. I'm thinking there's got to be something going on. And then I saw the 3rd person, and okay, what is going on? So I applaud your paper clips. You know, we need to focus more on where we agree. And we need to focus less on the extremes. And we need to bring our communities back together again. I'm not a politician. Never run for statewide office. I'm a problem solver. I can help bring our communities back together again, and I can fix some problems. So this is not going to be an easy race, though. It's going to be a hard race. All statewide races in Arizona are hard. Brian's very brave to tell you the last time that a state inspector was a Democrat. I don't even want to tell you the last time the treasurer was a Democrat. It's been a long time. I need you to donate your time and money. I need you to sign the petition, which I think most of you have done. And I need you to tell your neighbors about the importance of the treasurer race and the impact it can have on our economy and our education. I think people overlook this office way too often. There's much more we can do with this office. So with your help, we can help Arizona grow faster. We can spend more money on education. We can eliminate waste, and we can fix some problems. So thank you. Appreciate your support. And pick Nick. All right? Thank you. Happy to answer questions.
Does anybody have a question? All right, wait for the mic, and I'll be right there.
You mentioned bringing business and jobs, like attracting them to Arizona. What type of businesses or jobs are you hoping to attract?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very natural for our state to be at the forefront of healthcare, anything related to healthcare. We've got 2 great institutions, 3 great institutions, sorry. I won't tell you which one I forgot. We got 3 great institutions. They have a lot of folks, and we have a great asset in Banner Health. I'm actually on one of their boards. I've learned a lot more Banner in the last 3 years. They do a ton of great work for our state. This is not a promo for Banner Health, but we've got a lot of great resources that we should be at the forefront, and those are typically very good jobs. And I do think also, I went to school in the Bay Area. I spent 13 or 14 or 15 years there. Tech jobs can be good jobs too. So those would be 2 that sort of come naturally to mind, but I wouldn't limit us to just those.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nick, I assume that any proposal or concept you have and you want to put forward has to go through the legislature, is that correct?
Of the ideas I talked about, for sure the change in how the endowment is invested does have to go through the legislature. I will say about 2 weeks ago, was at a National Association of State Treasurers, and I met a number of other state treasurers. And the ones that I was very impressed with made one point to me. Somebody asked earlier who the mining inspector reports to. The treasurer does not report to the governor. The treasurer is a constitutional officer, and although the treasurer doesn't have as much power as the governor, the treasurers that I was most impressed with, they took their job sort of like a governor. They were lobbying with legislatures, trying to get things and getting things enacted in their state. So that one in particular, you would need the legislature and the governor to approve. I will say, I think it's a common sense issue. It is also an issue that should appeal to anybody who is for fiscal responsibility. So I would hope that it is something that we could get together and agree on. The ESAs, the treasurer is an administrator of those funds. And we're still figuring out the levers that can be pulled, but one thing is for sure, the treasurer has a fiduciary duty to this state. And so I know there's waste going on. We all know there's waste going on. And I think you'd have a pretty strong argument to say, I'm not going to pay these bills because I have a fiduciary duty not to waste the state's resources. So that doesn't require legislative help to work on.
Nick, a couple questions. Speaking of job growth, do you think all job growth is good? And 2, what are your views on data centers, which is a nationwide controversy?
I knew that one was coming. No, all jobs are not good, and it's not. I don't want to be on record for helter-skelter growth or anything like that. I grew a company quite a bit. Growth is a good thing, but you have to be smart about it. Just as we did when we were at Arizona College. We had to use our resources in a very fiscally responsible manner. We had shareholders, etc. Data centers, I think is an interesting question. Brian and I did not compare notes on this. I would say I'm generally in favor, but the devil is in the details on all of them. They obviously use a lot of water, they use a lot of energy, and so, in particular, our state water is obviously an issue. So, I don't know, I can't comment in any particular one. I definitely can't comment on Project Blue. I know I'm familiar with what's going on there. I'm not privileged under any NDAs or anything like that, so I don't know enough to know. And I'm sort of encouraged that maybe there's some way to do it without so much use of water, but I don't know enough to really comment on it.
Well, the tax rates on those are quite high, and so that would benefit the treasurer, but on the other hand, water is the biggest issue here, especially in the southern part of the state.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you said that because you made me forget a couple of things. Yes, the tax rate can be high. They often agree to make investments in infrastructure, which the community gets. That can be a benefit. They do create jobs, and just building them creates jobs. I know many unions are interested in them. So, those are the reasons. And frankly, there's a national security interest. So there's lots of reasons to be for them, but like I said, it just depends on the details.
I was curious about the education endowment.
Yeah.
And how were the funds invested differently than what most of our Western neighbors did?
Yeah.
And also, this is the first I heard about that, and I'm wondering if there's been coverage by reporting, or there
Yeah.
has been. Okay, I just missed
No,
that.
I'll answer the second question first. I've never heard anybody else talking about this. So, and I don't know why. It is a common sense idea. As I said, I was just at the National Association of State Treasurers. I met with some treasurers. I told them what we did, and they were all surprised that we did not do the change that I'm about to describe to you, okay? And these were Democratic treasurers that I was talking to for the most part. I can go really deep on this, but I'll try to keep it at a high level. The main change is we invest more of our money in low-interest bonds and less of our money in higher return investments. And this is an endowment fund. It's meant for perpetuity. So to put a little more meat on that bone, other states, they vary. Lots of variation between the states. But they are generally investing about 20% of their investment in bonds and safe, low-interest rate investments, and about 80% in other things. We invest about 40 and 60. Okay? Follow that? Yeah. Okay.
I've done a lot of work with Save Our Schools, and I've never heard them talk about this at all, nor have any of our legislators ever talked about it.
Yeah.
Is it not accessible for us to be able to withdraw from that to put in our school systems?
We have an investment policy that governs the endowment, and that investment policy has to be changed with the approval of the legislature. So we are investing it to what we can under the current restrictions.
I'm also from Colorado, and their structure of their budget, their school structure is funded separately from the general fund. Do you have any ability or input to any of the structure, or input even to the governor to make changes in the way we do our budget?
I look at the office this way, which is one of the roles of the office is you're the state's chief financial officer. I was a CEO, I've had a chief financial officer. A really good chief financial officer is not only looking at waste and where you might be more efficient, but also finding ways for you to make smarter investments with your money. And so the answer to your question is, yes, I think is there anything that the treasurer can do to wave a wand and say we need to be spending money this way? No. But I would intend to be active at the Capitol with the governor and the legislature, trying to make our budget as wise as possible. And I would hope that Katie Hobbs will be reelected, and she and I would see eye to eye on most things, and I would hope that I could work with, if we don't have a Democratic legislator at that point, other legislatures to try to get on the same page.
Where did the money come from that's in the endowment, and how is what money that's spent from the endowment used for education?
Yeah. When we were made a state, and this is true of many of the western states, the federal government said, here's 10 million acres to be used for the benefit of education. You heard of the state land trust, okay? Over 100 years, we sold 1 million of that 10 million acres. So we still have 9 million acres left, and that 1 million acres is now a $9 billion fund. The second part of your question, remind me?
How does it get spent?
How's it get spent? Yeah. It essentially goes into the general fund is a short way of saying it. It technically may not go in the general fund, but it's decided by the legislature is I guess what I should say. And just as most of the other education money is decided by the legislature.
That's why we need to get our LD 19 candidates elected so we can flip that Senate to make some changes to that budget.
If I can help, let me know.
We're right behind you. Yeah. We will have your petitions down in our office. If you've got people that want to come by and sign, you can do that. Or you can go online. The eQual sign is here. Please do that. That's easier and fastest. And you can make donations to your website. Give us the information on your website.
Yeah, it's Mansour for Arizona.com. My last name, MANSOUR, FOR, Arizona.com. So thank you again, and happy to answer questions afterwards, and appreciate all your support.
Thank you.
So, thanks for coming, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.